Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is Retro Recap 15. Fitting. And Retro Recaps are...
Our chance to... Wait,
it wasn't our. It was our.
You said our.
Our.
No, you said our.
Yes.
I heard it. O-U-R. You said our.
A-R-E.
Our chance to revisit some of our old games. Every once in a while, we like to take a break, have a week where we don't have to bring you the freshest, juiciest retro gaming content, and instead hand off to some wonderful members of our community to get their thoughts on the games that we've played recently. So every so often, we'll take 20-ish or so episodes and let some community members give their feedback on whether we got it right, whether we got it wrong, whether we completely missed it. And it's a really fun sort of mix-up of the show, and hope you're looking forward to it.
And we get to go on vacation for a day.
For a single day, and it's a lot of fun.
Some of us literally, Dustin.
Those community members are Garlyle, Shawna, and Klen. Joining us again, they did Retro Recap 14, and they've been a part of some other Retro Recaps in the past. Long-time community members. We love them. They're going to do fantastic with this episode. There's a lot of games to cover. It begins with Goemon's Great Adventure. It includes games like Ballz 3D, Viewtiful Joe, Yakuza, and BioShock.
We haven't done one in forever.
They have got their plate full.
Y'all have to speed run. It's going to be a 2-hour-long freaking episode.
Put your hands, feet, and nostrils together for Retro Recap 15.
Welcome to New Game Plus Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three fans spent 25 weeks listening to one podcast to give three guys one vacation for once. I'm not Dustin, I'm Garlyle.
And I'm not Kenny, I'm Shawna.
Steam Deck, not Nolan.
And this is Retro Recap 15. It's a community trip down memory lane for the past half a year of episodes. May this bring back many memories for veterans, and may this help new listeners to the show find episodes that interest them. And unless I'm wrong, we've got a lot to cover. We've got 25 episodes for you today, Patreon and producer pools, 4 different director episodes, the 7-year anniversary selected game, the first director's court, a guest episode. Oh, buddy, we've got a lot to cover. Since we're not the usual hosts, why don't we take a moment and quickly introduce ourselves so anybody new to the cast can catch our names and get used to us. Shawna, you first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shawna. You'll recognize me from Discord. I have been a part of the New Game Plus community now for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years? No, maybe longer? I don't know. It's been a long time. But yeah, I'm really super excited to come back and co-host another episode.
And I'm Klen. I've been around just about 3 years now, since we pulled Decap Attack. So I've been playing along every week since, so I should have a pretty good vibe on each of the games that we're talking about today.
And I'm Garlyle, and I've been around only a little bit longer than Klen has, and you've probably heard from me a bunch, if not just in the number of commentaries I've submitted too. So, while we've got a lot to get into, I did think I'd bring together some stats for everybody, but the truth was it was hard to find any sort of patterns in this one. We've got 10 different games that wouldn't have qualified for the Retro Master List back when this podcast started, but also we've got games as old as 1979 to cover in this. We had, of the episodes that actually got judgments, 12 of them were voted a yes and 7 of them no. Nolan had the most to disagree with this time. over this set of episodes, which I'm sure is something he brought with him into the director's court at the end of this set. So yeah, lots to talk about. We've got so many games to cover that honestly, I think we should just get into it. No more stalling. Let's go, Mon. Like in our retro game of the week. And you're here stuck with me.
Why?
So Goemon's Great Adventure was the first game of this set. It kind of felt like an extended summer pool party, in a way. And it was a producer pool from Dan the Man. He has been submitting this game for so long, and I am just so glad he finally got it picked, because it's so weird.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a couple Goemon fans in the community pushing to actually get one of the series finally on the show for a very long time.
Yeah, I've definitely bandwagoned a couple times to kind of help make that happen, but we all know the randomizer doesn't ever choose the bandwagon games anyway, so it's futile.
Yeah, if I remember right, this time specifically, I don't think anyone actually was on the bandwagon with him.
No.
Because I would usually throw at least one vote his way, and I think it was just him, so guaranteed it was his game that was picked.
That's amazing. One thing that's like to note about this episode in general, and we can get into the game if we want to in a few minutes. The thing about this game, or the way that this like was rated, was that it did get New Game Plus. The community, the guys, they were, all for it. Until Garlyle showed up and dropped some knowledge about the game, and you straight called it trash. And so I want you to be able to defend yourself, because I feel like, off of the heels of Director's Court, you had some very strong opinions about this game. Garlyle, do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah, I remember that I liked the personality of the game, but I really didn't like the level design. It's one of those cases of being a platformer where like your character size and movement speed is just like slightly too fast relative to the amount of screen you can actually see. So accidentally running straight into enemies or pits was really common, and it got frustrating. And that's a shame, because I honestly really love the other Goemon N64 game, the like Zelda style one, and I wish that had been the one we'd gotten.
I'm not going to make enemies here, but that's the same take that I have on Cool Spot.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
No, wait, we didn't play that. No, we didn't play that.
Not recently.
This time around. So.
Yeah, you stuffed those words right back into your mouth, sir.
You put those back where they came from.
I will flip this table. So the next game that we had the joy of playing, and I say joy very loosely, was the 1994 Sega Genesis, SNES, and 3DO title, Ballz, with a Z. And I didn't understand this game at all until I watched the first play to see what it was, and I still don't understand it, and I'm just going to go out and say that this game never needed to exist.
If you'd said anything other than I still don't understand it, don't worry, I played it and I still don't really fully understand. It's kind of neat, like, it's one of those pieces of like, hey, here's an early attempt to do 3D and stuff, and like, the tech behind it is kind of slightly impressive, but that's like the best thing I can give to the game is that. And when that's the best you can give to a game is, oh, your tech is impressive. Ooh, buddy.
I noticed you said that the game might as well have not existed. But I can guarantee you that with my complete in-box copy that's arriving tomorrow, that it does indeed exist.
Why did you buy that?
Sometimes Klen makes decisions.
Klen.
We both bought Barney.
Hey.
Oh, this is true.
That is an antique.
And Ballz isn't?
Our next game was Herdy Gerdy, the 2002 PS2 game about being a shepherd. Like, that's it. That's the game. Have you ever played those little mini games in other games where it's like you got to run around and scare things into the dens and stuff? Yeah, that's it. That's the game. You can imagine why I didn't like it.
It was so good. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, it was so good. That game
So good.
was awesome. And the New Game Plus certification would back that up.
In the court of NGP.
Did it get it?
It did, yeah.
This might be the one I most disagree with on this one, then.
This game was awesome. It's definitely gonna be a case-by-case basis on whether you like it, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to going back and finishing it.
Yeah, I will give this game one thing, which is that it did some very interesting, like, animation stuff. Like, its cutscene in World Work is very, very much like, hey, we just brought an animated movie into 3D and kept all that spirit of animation and stuff, and, like, for the most part, it works. Sometimes it results in, like, the main character looking like he's, like, 10 years older than he is sometimes. Like, just randomly jumping, whether he looks young or like a tiny adult. But
well, it's New Game Plus certified, and that's all we need to know.
Shepherds.
Our next game is Darius Gaiden, a 1994 shmup, I believe. Well, it's a horizontal space shooter, so not exactly a shmup.
It's shmup enough.
It's shmup enough. And you know what else it was? So forgettable.
So good.
I had to look it up and listen to the episode to remember what this game was, because it was so completely out of my memory.
I feel like we feel like that a lot about arcade style shmups. Like, I don't know, I just feel like even if they do get NGP, they're once we put them on the shelf, then we just kind of forget what they are.
I mean, it's definitely not as forgettable as another title we're going to be getting to in a little bit here, but I mean, Darius at least has the, like, unique aesthetic of, like, everything is based off of sea creatures. You're not fighting random robots and stuff, you're fighting giant mechanical fish and squids, and, like, that helps it. But it does kind of, like, we're definitely out of the height of the Shmups and Bups podcast that this was last time we did this retro recap. But I can't say this was a particularly standout one to me either. Not bad, but not particularly great.
Yeah, and there's one thing also to say about the shmups and the forgettable games that we have. Like, the fact that we can remember and recall a game like Ballz and completely forget about Darius Gaiden, it says something.
I mean, one way or another, Ballz sure leave an impact.
The next game we played was Viewtiful Joe. I can't even say it.
Viewtiful Joe.
Viewtiful Joe was the next game we played. A wonderful GameCube game. It did get NGP across the board, which is great. It had some, PG-13 opening scenes, but I think for the look of this game, it was very unique. I remember this time of gaming. Like, I get very nostalgic about the early 2000 gaming for sure. And then I just remember when this specific game came out, just like the game mechanics and how unique it was and how excited everybody was about it. It was really cool to, like, revisit this game. What is that, 20 years later?
Yeah, something like that.
Is that how that math works?
That is how that math works. Oh God. Oh God. Ow.
Existential
I was
crisis
thinking
time.
It is worth noting, this game was kind of special. This one was pulled as our 7th anniversary title. If you happen to have missed it, there was like a 2-hour episode where the guys brought on all sorts of community members and they were able to come and pitch their games. They did it a second time. We'd done it for the 6th year anniversary, but let's face it, that was just so much fun that they were like, you know what? This is it. This is what we'll do. And, like, not everybody in the community necessarily loved it, because it turns out it's actually a pretty hard game. when you think about beat 'em ups, you usually think of kind of brain dead button mashers. And like, no, if you don't dodge and properly interact with the enemies in this game, it's going to dunk on you. And in the face of its challenge, I'm actually mildly surprised it did get New Game Plus.
Yeah, the guys really loved this one. I just re-listened to this one earlier today, and they really fell in love with this one. I mean, they got on with the mechanics way better than I think probably a lot of people expected them to.
Yeah, they definitely were like unique mechanics for this game, like, you know, the slowing down time and all of those things. It definitely was a learning curve for folks, especially like back then it was, because this was so different. Like, we didn't have anything like this when this game was originally released. And I think that that's kind of a double-edged sword. It can either really hit and people get it and, you know, they take to it, or the mechanics are just too different and too hard and you end up, you know, falling flat.
All the personality this game has sure helps, though, just in terms of like humor and style and everything. Like, it's a really good game, and I'd like to thank Cecil for having brought it up, because I was really glad to revisit it. Speaking of games that I was really glad to have the opportunity to get my hands on as a result of this podcast, our first director episode of this set was Tasty Yogurt bringing Yakuza, the 2005 PS2 game that started the entire Like a Dragon franchise that is still going to this day. And man, what an absolute censored trip that was.
I love that game. It is amazing.
Full stop. We love this game.
Yeah, I ended up not playing through the original, but mostly because a friend sent me the upgraded version of it partway through, and I ended up proceeding to play that all the way through, and Yakuza 0, and I'm taking a bit of a break before I move on to the next one, and I know Dustin's been playing 0, and I know Nolan's been playing 0. This game has had an effect on a few people.
It is one of those really rare opportunities where, like, the guys have continued to play these games. Not just one game, but they've continued through. The last one to do that was actually right before this set, with Professor Layton, where Dustin did go through and start playing the second game.
Yeah, I'm still trying to convince him to start the third one already, because I know he finished the second one. But
you can only puzzle so much.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Alright, our next game is Mario and Wario, a 1993 Mario game, which this one worked with the SNES mouse, right?
Yeah, that was a big topic of conversation on the episode, was like, this is kind of like a kid's first training game on how to use the mouse, until you get to the secret bonus stages.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, the
I think I played it for 10 minutes.
A whole 10 minutes. I think we played Barney longer, and Barney definitely played itself longer.
Yeah, Barney definitely played itself longer than I played this game.
Yeah, it definitely takes way too long to actually get interesting for any experienced gamers. But then in the long run, like I said, I got to the secret stages. I literally couldn't beat them. Like, it gets hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel like mixed emotions when it comes to games that have peripherals with it, because it's like, oh, hey, like, here's this mouse, and sure, it's a great training tool for, 1993 to teach children how to use, like, mice, or people how to use mice in general. But then now you're stuck with this mouse, and what else do you do with it? And, I know how much we all love Donkey Kong, but I do recall a little game on, I think it was GameCube, that was the bongo game with Donkey Kong. And it's like, what do I do with these bongos? I don't know. I bought them. I had them. They're somewhere. But, like, I don't bongo with anything else. So I just kind of feel, like, lackluster when it comes to a game with a specific peripheral that you need to have with it.
Well, I'll say this much. I was catching back up, going back through the backlog of NGP episodes. This game was way better, I can say with certainty, than Mario Teaches Typing.
What are you talking about? I still play that. All right, the next game we played was another director's episode, this time with Super Hypered. We played Resident Evil 4, 2005, another wonderful year, GameCube title. So I'm a big fan of scary games, so of course I always like a good Resident Evil title or similar. I was a little disappointed. I believe this was... Oh, no, this wasn't the one where Kenny needed it to be scarier, which I thought was funny. We'll talk about that later. Dustin did the first play for this one. I always love seeing Kenny do the scary games because he gets very scared. However, Dustin yelped out loud in his first play. So if you haven't seen the first play of Resident Evil 4, make sure that you check that out because it scares Dustin.
Yeah, we have like 2 different scary games to cover on this particular batch. And this one definitely, like, its horror more comes from, like, surprise type of, jump out and shock you just out of nowhere. And so, like, I don't really consider this all this scary of a game. It was one that I used to play a lot as a kid, and I was, and I honestly kind of still am, tiny baby man. But yeah, no, it's good. I was kind of sad because I just wasn't feeling it going back to it this week for whatever reason.
And I played it during the week, and I bounced off it really hard. I mean, I think my commentary was read on the episode, and it was pretty seething.
Well, Nolan was big mad with the commentary that was submitted for this game, so...
I completely take it back. I've been playing through the game again on Steam Deck, and I learned the melee controls, I learned how to fight properly, and it has been, like, one of the best gaming experiences for me recently. It is so good.
So you're saying Steam Deck made Resident Evil 4 playable?
No, me being not bad made Resident Evil 4 good.
That helps with a lot of games.
Yeah,
it
just
does,
good.
yeah.
Next up is a game that I think we can pretty much all inarguably agree was a bad time and aren't going to be taking that back post-recording. RoboCop 2. And I mean, I remember being one of the people who was a little bit slightly more positive on it, and I still, like, no.
Yeah, I think my note here, I'm reading my note now, it says, no cop.
So yeah, whenever you have to know that an invisible shortcut is in a level to beat the first level in the game, that's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Yeah, that like sums it up right there of like what is wrong with this game's design. But then you get like awkward physics, and you get like just poor enemy placement.
The ice skate running is so bad in this game. And like the delay on jumping, I can still remember both of those so vividly. Where some games I don't even, like Darius Gaiden, I don't remember playing that game.
Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, I always feel like when we play these games, it's just like, was it even meant to be a game, or was it just a cash grab because there's a movie and we're just gonna capitalize on kids with this movie?
I feel like it was a Data East game, if I'm remembering right. In which case, yeah, that would explain it. It's not a cash grab. They're just kind of really bad at their jobs.
Oh. So again, get good.
Yeah. Now,
good.
whether it was one of the worst games that the guys have ever played was a pretty hot topic of debate on the episode. And I definitely don't think it was like as bad as some of the stuff they've played, or like not worse than some of the stuff they've played, I should say, but it was pretty bad.
The next game we played it's a little like crossover episode. So we had Mega Man 5 come up, the 1992 Nintendo game. Got New Game Plus, of course. Really cool to see the first play on this one. Nolan like totally dominated it. I felt he did so good in the first play, so definitely check that out. I know that, you know, Garlyle, Mega Man, is near and dear to your heart, so I'll give the floor to you and you know, tell us what you thought of the episode.
Do not give the floor to me. I will talk about this game for 50 minutes in a row. And that's not an exaggeration. I have a podcast, but...
yeah, let's record you talking about it, and then we have a whole nother... We'll just dominate.
But yeah, I mean, no, it was good.
Don't give the floor to me either, because I didn't get along with this game, like I don't get along with most classic Mega Man titles. And I don't really want to lose friends today. I'm trying very hard not to do that.
Oh, we got a fight
on
our hands.
If you go into Mega Man 5 and you come out of it not liking it, then it just means classic Mega Man just isn't your thing. That is my theory on this. Like, it is the most accessible and straightforward Mega Man, like, classic title. It is the guys talked a bunch about this, about how, like, usually they associate Mega Man with just being brutally hard, and no, this one's actually really fair and chill. So...
The only one I liked was 2. The next game we played was Final Fantasy VI, a legendary title by Square Enix, if you didn't know where Final Fantasy came from. This was a SNES title. It was a director's episode with...
Friendly Kozak.
Yes, Friendly Kozak. I only have like half the name on my notes, unfortunately. But yes, another director's episode. Thank you again to all of our lovely directors. And this was so fun. I still didn't beat it during this week. It still lays unfinished in my catalog.
I mean, Final Fantasy games are known for being at least a little bit long and a little bit of an undertaking. I honestly should have spent more time with it. I keep doing this thing with Final Fantasy VI where I've played it a bunch. And so, like, I will restart it, get through, like, the first 5 to 6 hours of it, so that I start getting to the interesting parts in terms of gameplay and stuff, and then I'm just like, okay, I've had my fill, and that's unfair to the game.
Yeah, Final Fantasy games are always hard for me, because, like, I love them. I love them so much, but I think I say this every time a Final Fantasy game comes up, that, like you, I'll get started on them, and then... you know, I'll get distracted with something else, or I can't dedicate all of the time to it. But yeah, I just love Final Fantasy games in general. I love when we do episodes on them. And also, again, I love when we have director's episodes, and we had so many with this group of games. We've, like, if you don't listen to this podcast, like, this last, like, 25 or so episodes have definitely been, I think, some of the best, like, breadth of things that we cover. So it was a great episode.
Our next game is oh wait, no, now I've remembered it. 1987's Twin Cobra, which I think is yeah, that's pretty much it. Listen, like, I recognize, I was looking into this. This is considered kind of like a part of shmup history. Like, the really, really hardcore shmup fans for, like, the old arcades and stuff will know this one by name. If you're not in that specific bubble, though, there is, like, a set of military vertical scrolling shmups from that specific era. They were all the same game.
Yeah. As a person who played titles like this when I was younger and really, really, really ended up enjoying them, I do remember playing Twin Cobra, and I blame games like this for where I ended up now, being kind of like a cozy-esque kind of gamer, where I realized I like games like this because I did some deep thinking, because I was like, why do I like games like this? I like small things, like little miniature things. I like maps. So that's how I got really into RTSs. And I feel like I used to play games like this. Then I found things like Warcraft, and I really enjoyed those. And we just kind of pared it down to where I am today. So games like Twin Cobra have a place in the world if you end up playing, like, better games after you play them.
Yeah, this was the other shmup that I had to look up and watch the first play and listen to the episode to remember. Because there's just, like, there's nothing really notable that causes it to stand out among all of those other military shmups of its time. There's nothing like, you know, the Strikers, helicopter mechs or anything like that come out and really set it apart. It was very basic, and I didn't really have a good time, and neither did anyone else.
Yeah, I know Dustin always wants shmups to get NGP status, but even he was like, you know what? No.
No fun was had here.
No fun was had. The next game we played was a 2005 PlayStation title. The title was Trapt. It is the most unique game that we have played on the podcast, and perhaps one of the most unique games that I have ever played in my life.
Yeah, definitely up there in contention, especially among these recent 25.
Yeah, this game was unique. I missed this game originally. I don't even remember it, and I feel like this would have been a game I would recall. It's very unique. Again, nothing like I've ever seen before. I watched the first play, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like Saw, the movie Saw, but a game. Also, side note, this episode was co-hosted by you, Garlyle, as well, so you got to be kind of first-hand experience on this one. But yeah, this game was bonkers.
Yeah, the guys kind of needed a replacement for Kenny on that week, and they were just like, you know, they came begging to my doorstep, like, please, please, please. Actually, what happened was more like Dustin started saying, like, hey, so Kenny will be out of town on the weekend. I was like, yes!
Yeah, it didn't even get around to me. They didn't even come asking to me, so they got Garlyle on the first grab, so...
I was surprised it happened, but, I mean, it was basically Christmas time, so I took it as a gift, you know.
Yes.
But
it was a really good episode. It was awesome to have you
Yeah.
on and hear your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it's such an interesting game. Even if you don't want to go back and listen to the episode, like, please go look up some gameplay and stuff, because, like, I am genuinely surprised I haven't even heard about this one in, like, a cult classic sense from people.
Yeah. And watching the first play, like, that was the thing I did first. Is like, I watched the first play because I was like, I don't understand what this game is about. So I watched Nolan play it. I think that out of all of everybody, like, Nolan was probably the best person to play this first play. However, I would have loved to see Dustin and Kenny's first impressions of a game like this, because it's just so much.
I do want to say something maybe a little bit weird, but I think this is the game that convinced me to go back and try Resident Evil 4 again.
That doesn't seem that weird to me. It does actually kind of have, like, some of the same-ish sentiment behind it. Some of the same-ish control style, kind of. It has that atmosphere.
The next game we played, quote, a nothing burger of a game from...
Objection! Well, I dare say the guys definitely did not think this was a nothing burger, regardless of what Kenny had to say.
I know. Kenny was wrong. And, you know, he's allowed to be wrong sometimes. This is his one time he's allowed to be wrong. But if you don't know what we're talking about, the next game we played was Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. One of the best games I think we've played in a while. It's definitely held on to the community for, I mean, I think we played this around the holidays, and now it's, what is it, March now? So about 3 months. We've still been talking about this game, so that goes to show you. This was a 2001 Game Boy Advance DS title. Thankfully, it's very available as well everywhere else, so you can get your hands on it pretty easily. It did thankfully get New Game Plus. Dustin and Nolan made the right decision. And I think that I just based off of like the community, it feels like this was probably one of those games where the most people ever all played at the same time.
Yeah, something that definitely happened recently was just like we have had a large explosion of people coming in and like playing along in the Game of the Week channels and leaving commentary and stuff. And games like this in Final Fantasy VI just got like tons and tons of people playing along. And like, yeah, this one's super accessible today. It's real easy to get into. Like, it is primarily just reading a story with a tiny bit of gameplay. And like, I don't know, it was a blast. I know people have been putting it in Patreon pools forever. So finally getting it on a Patreon pool right before Christmas, so we had the 2 weeks, was like perfect.
I'm just so glad, like, we got Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright in the same year, and that that's such a gift to the guys, because they got to experience both of those for the first time.
Yeah, the fact that none of the three of them had played this game, or Layton or anything like that, just kind of blew my mind. Our next major game was the 2007, like, kind of milestone title for RPGs, Mass Effect, which was brought to us by our director, Brunk. This is, you know, the big father of the, like, kind of modern idea of what a Western RPG is in many ways. Whether everybody necessarily loved it, I don't know. I think me and Klen might be the outliers on this one, who are kind of not as in love with it as everybody else.
Yeah, I've never gotten on with BioWare's gameplay, but I can accept that the story here was actually pretty good. I just really wish I had been able to just see the story. If they made this into a show like Last of Us, I am so on board with watching it.
There's still time.
There's still time.
There's still time. I'm really excited. Actually, there's a point as I've been going back and re-reviewing things, and seeing the games like laid out in front of us. This was the point of the group of episodes that we're reviewing today that I started getting really excited, because there's a few games that have been on my backlog to check out since like 2007, since 2005, Mass Effect being one of them. And it is so awesome that a lot of the games that I've always been really interested in just started to pop up. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the Mass Effect, and, you know, and also like listening to Brunk. He's been like a big part of our community now for the last like few years, and he's always participating in a lot of things that we're doing. So being able to spend a little bit longer of a period of time with him and listen to him about, you know, why Mass Effect was, you know, a really cool game and all that stuff is like really enjoyable. I got a lot of Knights of the Old Republic vibe from this game as well. So like that was fun too.
Yeah, I can see that. I like have a history with BioWare's previous stuff. Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, Jade Empire, Knights of the Old Republic. And if you followed their stuff up to that point, like Mass Effect was kind of just like, yeah, no, this is a BioWare game. The combat engine may be different, but you can see the exact thread that has led up to this point.
Yep. Our next game is Mace, The Dark Age. It is a 1997 PC title, if I remember correctly.
N64 and arcade, I think. I don't remember if this ever got a PC port. Might have.
Okay, yeah, I must have been remembering incorrectly. I wonder what game I was thinking of then.
I mean, this game kind of fades into the, like, 500 early 3D fighters, many of which were, like, kind of trying to clone Mortal Kombat. And I mean, I don't know if it's fair to call it a Mortal Kombat clone. I'm pretty sure it was the same company. But
so, you know what I got this confused with was Dark Messiah. That's where I got wrong.
That is a little bit of a different game.
A little bit different, but yeah, no, this was a 3D fighter on the 64. Now I remember. And it was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah, we can tell it clearly left a big mark on you.
So big. I mean, this was a great episode, just in general. Gameplay aside, the beginning of this episode, actually, we talk a little bit about, like, if I remember correctly, we talk a little bit about the retro games that we want to play in the future. And like one of the cool things that happened was Nolan accidentally predicted the future, where he said that he wanted to play Deus Ex, which we end up playing later on, which is kind of cool to see like that come to fruition. And also, if you go back and listen to this episode, it brought two like long lost friends back together after 15 years. And I don't care if this game was boring or not good or anything. It's those kinds of like stories that help make New Game Plus and our community just so amazing. And like, I don't know, like that just made the whole thing for me like so special.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stories from time to time from people who are like, yeah, no, this was a part of my childhood, et cetera, but I don't think it's like ever actively reunited a friendship before. So,
Yep, that was really cool.
The next game we played, some may say, is a unicorn. The 1994 SNES title Uniracers, previously sued by Pixar.
yeah, I was about to say, are we sure we can actually talk about that on this episode without ending up in danger?
I don't know. Have Kenny come. He can be the judge.
It's so weird.
I hear the other two hosts have their law degrees, so I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, they're lawyers.
Yeah, it'll work out. This one was definitely like a unique one. It's first off, it's like a 2D side-scrolling racer, which is not a thing.
Work? No.
Like there were 2D racing games before this, but they were all like top-down or isometric view and stuff. So that was different. It was really fast for the SNES. Like you'd think with the speed of the game that it was running on Genesis, because that was usually Genesis's deal. And just it was also like kicking soundtrack, really strange. Took some learning, but it was a game I remembered like messing around with as a kid, but I finally like got it, so to speak, this week and had a ton of fun.
Yeah, I was surprised so many people hadn't heard of this one, because it's like, it's been around. People have been talking about it around me like forever, it seems like, and I've just never gotten my hands on it until this week. And it's really good. I mean, it's one of the better SNES titles that isn't a JRPG that I've ever played.
Yeah, I feel like this would have been one of those like blockbuster like common rentals if you had it in a video game store near you.
Definitely.
Yeah, it definitely would have been a renter.
Our next episode was episode hold on here. Episode 1. Yep, that's what happened. As we went back in time to look at Earthworm Jim a second time. A little while ago, for those of you who maybe are new to the podcast and have actually been wondering, like, hey, where the hell are the first 3 episodes? The guys made the decision that they weren't happy with, like, the early audio quality and, you know, some other little bits and bobs, and now they're much more confident, and so we'll be revisiting the first 3 episodes games, Earthworm Jim, Half-Life, and Perfect Dark, over pretty much the course of this year, and the first of those was Earthworm Jim. It was really interesting to come back to that and see how the guys have just grown, not just like much more confident and like much more technologically capable with audio quality, but also like the way that some of the opinions have subtly like just matured. Like Nolan still says like, yeah, just get good, it's difficult, but also recognize like, yeah, not every form of difficulty is necessarily like fun or good difficulty.
Yeah, this was I know we usually talk about this at the end, but this was like my favorite episode from this grouping of titles that we played, and I'm so happy that we are revisiting some of these titles. And also, like, huge shout out to Dan, our audio editor, for pulling in so many different like sound bites and things like that. It was a very like, I don't know if it's very like audio technical, but it definitely was a treat to kind of go back and like re-listen to like opinions that were said and then see how things had changed or build off of them. So it was a really cool episode to listen to. In fact, I've like listened to it 3 times.
Yeah, it's such an amazing episode. It's a great episode for people who are new to the podcast to check out, but especially for people like for us who've been around for a long time and who've worked through the backlog. It was so cool to see that episode happen and, you know, get to see those new opinions or the revamped old opinions and everything. And just all of it was so cool. It was just awesome. I'm very much looking forward to the next 2.
Yeah, especially because they were so early in the podcast that they didn't have like active listeners writing in and stuff. It's also cool to go back to those and like have a community join in the play that week.
All right, our next episode was not episode 2. It was a director episode, though. Another director episode, if you'd believe that. This was with Compacta. Compacta came on and chose to give us the pleasure and grace us with BioShock.
So good.
This game is amazing. I didn't realize until I finished it that I have finished this game before. And honestly, having gone back through it, there's so many things that I missed and so many things I got to catch this second time. It was just a blast. I love this game.
Yeah, this was one of those games that I was saying has been on my forever backlog list, and seeing it finally, like for the first time, it was just so cool. But Garlyle, I saw you do some confused emotes. Are you okay?
I'm much like Mass Effect, I'm kind of the wet blanket on this game. Listen, the best way to put it is that when I was streaming this on Discord in my Final Fantasy XIV guild, like just hanging out, I had a bunch of people come in, look at what I was streaming, and they go, "Are you okay? This isn't like you. Like, what are you doing with BioShock? This is not your game." It is so not my game that people just knew instinctively it wouldn't be. And, like, I will give it this. Like, it is a really gorgeous world. Like, I really want to poke my nose around Rapture some more at some point just for the sake of doing it. But also I found out that caused me to have the weird opinion of this game's not scary at all to me because I want to go see what's around the next corner, you know?
Yeah, and I don't find it scary either. I actually find it, like, really fascinating. The only things I really find scary are the intentional, like, jump scares, where they put something intentionally in front of you that you don't know is going to be there. But, honestly, at some point you just get powerful enough where you can just deal with it.
Yeah, our directors sure did love bringing us some real big-name games, though. Like, whether or not I like BioShock, it's hard to ignore the fact I'm pretty sure this affected, like, the next decade of games development, influentially speaking.
For sure. You should go back and finish it, though.
The next game we played is more fun than it probably should be. It's an Atari 2600 game from the year 1979 entitled simply Adventure.
Yeah, speaking of influential games here's a game that named an entire genre.
Adventure.
Here's like one of the games that popularized video games entirely. This game was so much fun during this week. I had jumped on and I streamed it in the Discord I think I streamed it on Twitch actually. But streamed through playing all 3 difficulties and getting the first Easter egg. It was just a blast to have people in there commenting and following along and joining the adventure. Was such a blast. I mean, the community is always so much fun to hang out with, and especially for that was like a legendary moment for me with the community.
yeah, this was not quite my game. You know, it's definitely on the simple side. Like, what do you expect out of an Atari? Like, they cannot do much more complex than that. So, like, to me, it kind of feels like, hey, yeah, this is like a prototype of something that is like foundationally solid. But I think even like my developer brain is like, yeah, but this shows how important a solid fundamental is. You don't necessarily need like massive graphics or anything like that to create a functional, like, fun game core, and that's an important lesson to hold these days.
Yeah, it definitely was Zelda's daddy.
Next up is one of the games that would definitely be in competition for weirdest games they've played on the podcast. The originally Japanese N64 only, later brought to Europe on the GameCube, and I don't think ever released in North America, Doshin the Giant, a game about, like, terraforming, building little civilizations, and just being an all-around big stompy dude. And
Doshin. I love this
running.
game.
I want this game so bad. Like, my heart hurts that I don't have it and that I didn't know that it existed before we played it. And now all I do is think about how I want that game.
This was such a pleasure for me to experience during that week. I loved every moment that I played of this game, and I know most people don't agree with that.
Those people are wrong. Garlyle, do you have anything positive to say about Doshin?
Okay, let me choose my words very carefully. No, actually, I think if you are the type of, like, cozy, chill, like, I just want to watch people grow type of gamer, like, this is up your alley. Absolutely. I think it's a little bit bare bones compared to what I think a lot of entries in, like, the God game genre would be, but it definitely is just cozy and charming.
Yeah, it definitely is. One of the things that, I mean, obviously, everything you said about, like, the cozy gaming and all that stuff obviously appeals to me. Some of you who might not know, because I haven't done it for a long time, because I got the bad news of it, for years, I submitted Black and White to, be played for years and years and years and years on all the Patreon pools and all the pools. I put Black and White in there. Sadly to find out that there's, like, literally no digital way of playing Black and White anymore unless you have the original discs, which I no longer have. And so seeing a game like this, similar enough to Black and White, at least scratch that itch. At least I got to see, the guys do a first play of it. At least I got to hear them talk about it. But yeah, I'm just, like, I'm thrilled that we got to play another cozy game as well.
But how do you feel about the fact it didn't get New Game Plus?
I am breaking up with them. I mean, only, like, okay, Nolan gave it New Game Plus, so, like, we're still good. I don't know about Kenny and Dustin right now, though.
Thin ice.
We stand Nolan. We stand Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
Our next game was Skyblazer. Skyblazer was a ridiculously fun Super Nintendo title for 1994. It was a action-adventure, side-scrolling, if you think your Mega Mans, your Castlevanias, totally within that genre. And it's really, really stinking cool. The visual flair of this game is, like, nearly unmatched on the console. So good.
Yeah, even though this was, like, in my head, I always get this game mixed up with Soul Blazer. Like, my instinct is just like, oh yeah, it's just this completely different game. And that's kind of unfortunate, because I think this game is one of the SNES games that deserves a little bit more recognition.
See, it's funny you say you get it confused with another game, because I keep getting it confused with ActRaiser.
Maybe it's just the Razor. So I didn't grow up with a SNES, and whenever we, like, come across these, like, gem SNES games. I get kind of like sad that I didn't get that opportunity to play those ones as a kid, because for me, this would have been a renter, like over and over and over. This would have been a renter that I did over and over and over again. I probably would have never been given the game, but I definitely would have had no problem like wasting my parents' money just renting this constantly.
Yeah, as another kid who didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up, this was one of those that really made me wish that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took advantage of like the SNES hardware in some neat ways too. Like the guys discussed things like the boss that is literally the background wall that like swings around on itself to try to crush you. Like it does some definitely memorable, cool stuff.
The next game we played was Nolan's premonition coming to fruition, Deus Ex from the year 2000, a fine vintage PC title with our new friend, that Trav guy. We had a guest.
Yeah, we haven't
on our
had a guest in
episode.
so long.
So many years. It was so cool to have a guest join us. Trav was awesome. I hope that, we can have more opportunities to like chat with him and have him in our community as well. He was so cool. It was so awesome to hear his thoughts on Deus Ex and just see how he does. His content is really good as well. So I'm sure, if you like NGP, you'd probably like his stuff too. So definitely check him out. And about the game, this was another one of those that was on my forever backlog list. So I was really excited to also see that come about. Just again, that early 2000s time frame for me is just so nostalgic. So it was just really cool to see, the mechanics of this game. And, it's cool to see things like the beginnings of different mechanics that are very common. So like the sneak factor that was in this game and like seeing how that's grown over time, it always makes you feel far more immersed in the game. So it was cool to see that.
You keep saying the word C, but I unfortunately ran into the problem when I tried to play that my brightness settings literally didn't work. And it turns out that when almost everything on screen just renders almost perfectly pitch black, it's really hard to play that game.
Yeah, that would make it difficult.
Kind of.
I kept wanting to compare this as like the medium, like the branch between stuff like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and stuff like Splinter Cell.
Yeah, Splinter Cell.
The problem with that comparison is the fact that like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark released at the same time as this did. So it doesn't really work as a branch because it's just kind of a sibling in the same like year.
Oh, I mean, those are console, and so like this is PC as well. So they're definitely, I think that there was definitely a separation between PC titles and what they could do and console games and what they were doing. There was like two different worlds.
Yeah, there's separation for sure, but there wasn't enough time to like have influence to branch off of and grow from.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think there was a conversation in the Discord about how like PC games, just by virtue of having a keyboard, would try to do so much more, because if they added a new feature, they could just bind one of like 50 different keys to it. And that's definitely the kind of game that Deus Ex feels like, is like one of those, we threw in everything we could in order to just make the most game.
Yeah, I had to buy a third keyboard to actually use all the buttons in the game, so...
What goes with your second monitor?
2 monitors, 3 keyboards, 6 mice, and a couple foot pedals.
Normal PC setup.
Our next game is a game that I can't believe Kenny wasn't terrified by. I'm kind of insulted because I am a tiny baby man who spent the entire week screaming about Silent Hill. If you don't know Silent Hill, it's a 1991 PlayStation 1 game that the guys talked a lot about, like, oh yeah, this is kind of similar to Resident Evil, but like Resident Evil is very much like we do kind of jump scare, kind of moody, mostly action-oriented. No, Silent Hill is a game where you are meant to run, and you are meant to run very far away and hope that you're not running into something because you can't see. It is dark, it is atmospheric, it is so fundamental to what makes horror games tick. Like, even if it's old and dated, I lasted like an hour before I got into the school partway, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, Sassy Kenny definitely joined us for this episode. We haven't seen Sassy Kenny in a while, but he emerged and demanded more scary.
I am convinced that Kenny heard this was going to be a horror game, so he muted the game entirely and walked into a very, very, very bright, public, crowded place where no fear would happen, and that's where he experienced this game. And that's why he wasn't scared.
Yeah, they were talking on the episode about like, oh yeah, well the sound doesn't fit with the environment all the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's creepy, is you're hearing things you're not supposed to be hearing. Like, you walk into a room and you hear grinding and stuff and you can't see around the corner. You're just like, oh god, what the hell is that? Like, all that stuff is so critical to what makes it work for me that I was just... It absolutely floored me that it didn't affect Kenny at all.
The radio static was like, it was so revolutionary for that. And going back and having pretty similar stuff with Resident Evil 4, as I'm replaying, I'm like, that was so inspired by this.
Yeah, so many games will use that thing where the closer you get to danger, you start to hear the music ramp up, and like, you might not see the threat, but you know it's there.
There's something so nice about a horror game like that actually lets you let your guard down because there's no sound effects going on. Like, when you have those, you can get on edge, but once all the enemies in the area are dead or dispatched in whatever way, the sound quiets down and you can kind of calm down before it starts up again. And I think that makes it so much scarier.
Yeah, like, you know, the danger isn't...
The roller coaster keeps going.
Yeah, and I think that for this episode alone, like, game aside, I think that listening to this episode was almost just as, if not more stressful than the game, because of how much contention, like, there was that, you know, Kenny wasn't scared, and, you know, how this could not, you know, how could end with maybe not getting New Game Plus. And I think that this is just obviously a call to action for us to put more scary games in there for Kenny.
I think we should be very thankful for Kenny's safety that they don't record in the same room.
It was a hard episode. I thought it was gonna flip at some point.
Our last episode for this set was actually a very special episode. It is our first Director's Court. This was a defense against episode 65, Bomberman 64. The directors so graciously chose to pick such a choice title that I've been angry about since the day I joined the Discord. And bring justice to it in a court of law. And from the bottom of my heart, specifically, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of the directors were like, yeah, I bet Klen will enjoy this if we do. It just kind of organically happened. For those who were really curious,
a little bit.
Yeah. For those who were curious what happened, actually, we got like a separate private chat set up, and we just kind of tossed around like a few different games that we were maybe interested in revisiting. Like, Abe's Odyssey was put forth because that was a game that didn't get NGP, but it was only the two hosts there at the time, and maybe it could have changed if it was all three. Yes, for those asking at home, Mega Man 3 was put forth. I threw in Final Fantasy Tactics, actually, and we ended up with a list of about 10 of them, and then we just took a vote, picked like our top 3 games, and Bomberman 64 was actually like a clear winner. It wasn't a close race, so...
I'm surprised that Spyro wasn't. I mean, Spyro had to be in like the top 3.
It did get brought up, but I think it barely made those top 3s, actually. Maybe that'll change by the next time. Who knows when that'll be, but yeah.
I loved this episode so much.
It was so good. This
good.
might be, actually, hands down, I think it is the best NGP episode. If you're going to listen to any other episode, it has to be this one.
Well, it has to be episode 65,
Yes.
and then it has to be that. And I was saying in Discord earlier this week that I think that this episode may have, like, off-seated the D&D episode, which to date was my favorite episode of all time for NGP. It was just incredible. It was an incredible episode.
Yeah, I have to give it to the guys. Like, they tried to play it, like, so straight and serious, and you can tell that they're trying to avoid cracking up the entire time.
That was the best part.
They did not succeed.
Then just one of them will just drop a line like, "Let the record show the prosecution has no friends," and it just the delivery of that, just completely serious, had me on the floor at work. It was amazing.
I know the best episodes are when like you have headphones on and you're just like walking around in like life and you just start out loud laughing. And that episode definitely did that for me. Also, the Earthworm Jim revisit did that for me too. So kudos to. I hope we have more of these because they're just so good.
Yes, every Christmas cast is one of those for me.
The Christmas casts are so good. Shout out to Tom.
Shout out to Tom
for that journey he takes us on. It's so I wait every year for that.
He does such good trivia.
So good, the best trivia.
World's best trivia. Trivia
Goes to
Tom.
Trivia Tom.
Believe it or not, that does actually finally catch us up. So, as we wrap up this episode, I do have a couple questions, which is, what's the favorite game that you got to play out of this set of 25? And, while we covered some of our favorites, which episode was actually your favorite to listen to out of these? Any takers on going first?
I didn't study.
If you had asked me last week, I would have absolutely said Phoenix Wright for both of those. But having gotten the Steam Deck and having got back into it, Resident Evil 4 is definitely the game I have loved the most to discover and fall in love with in this last set. And I think the RoboCop episode might be one of my favorites, if we're not including the director's court. The amount of shade and the amount of anger and hatred was just, it was unreal. It was so good.
Delicious hatred.
Delicious hatred. Yes, let your anger fuel you.
Oh my gosh. Klen has gone to the dark side.
Yeah. I'll say that my personal favorite game, I brought it up, but I was so happy I finally got convinced to play Yakuza and got into that from that. I'm absolutely going through the rest of that series. I might have blown $70 on Steam just buying the entire thing. So,
Oh, you're in.
Yeah, I am in, or as in as the other several hundred games on my Steam account, let's be real.
So in.
And my favorite episode, even if I didn't like the game much, Deus Ex, just having that Trav guy there, he is genuinely really talented at what he does. He has a lot of insights on both the good and bad side of the game. It's not like a one-sided nostalgia trip. So that was really nice. I really liked that one.
Awesome. And I think my favorite game that I played along with us, this group of games, probably was Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. It just hit right at the best spot for me to play a game like that. I had just moved. I'm out in California, so as most of y'all know, it's just been raining for the last 5 months and we can't go outside. So a game like Phoenix Wright is super cozy. You can just sit down, get snuggly, and play it, and you feel really cool. You feel like a really cool lawyer / detective. And I'm going to say that my favorite episode, definitely, we just talked about it, was the director's court for Bomberman. Like that, it was so good. It was just so good.
Yeah.
Too good.
Too good.
That covers the past, but what about the future? If you haven't heard the news because you didn't listen to the Director's Court episode, first off, did you not just listen to us yelling about it? Why haven't you just stopped listening to this episode and go listen to that one yet? And at the end of the episode, you'd find out that Super Paper Mario is coming up next week, and it's another director's pick. So you still have...
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Another one.
I know,
Another
right?
one.
You still have a week to play along to get your commentary in for the episode, and please do. Like, it is our first Wii title, and
Yeah.
despite the fact...
Wii's retro. What?
Yeah, I know.
We can't believe it.
We can't.
The Wii is now just as old now as the GameCube was when the podcast started.
That is ridiculous.
Stop that.
My brain can't math that much.
So, if you happen to like what you've heard on the episode, or you just want to come hang out and play games with us, because, like I said, we've got so many new listeners and people in the community who are playing along every single week on these games, you should come by the Discord. Head to the NGP website and click on Join Us on Discord, or just go hit discord.gg/newgameplus. If you want to do a little bit more and support this show, maybe, join in on the Patreon pools, get a little benefit there, get a chance to have your game selected, maybe go a little extra far and even become a director like so many people have recently and come on, you can head to patreon.com/NGP podcast. There's already a ton of people who do, like our many, many, many producers. Adam, Alex, Amarlian, Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Brunk, Ellis, Fishy, Francesca, Gimbin, J. Robert, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Klen, Knickknack, Corey, Lowy, Levi, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Pedro, Sajin, Shawna, Subsonic Demon, Tasselhoff, Thomas Unbelievable, and Zion, and our 5 directors, Bro Jim, Daniel, DH Bowser, Super Hypered, and myself. I'd like to give a huge thank you to Dustin, Kenny, and Nolan for inviting us back to this, and an also gigantic thank you to Dan Willett for editing the audio version of the podcast, and Dylan for the video podcast. Seriously, if you've never tried content creation on your own and ever had to edit these things, it's a ton of work, and big props to them for all the work they do and making the guys sound so good. And you know what? A special welcome from the community to Dave in particular. We know you've been with us for a bit, but you're our wonderful new graphic editor. And because of you, we got to see Nolan's head on a Silent Hill nurse in one of the thumbnail clips. And I don't know where my life would have been without you.
Forever changed.
Forever.
Yeah. And a special thank you to my co-hosts. While you're here, why don't you talk up what you've been doing recently? Starting with you, Shawna.
Well, I have taken a little bit of a break from making my own content. We're all content creators here. I am usually, you can find me not only in Discord, but on my YouTube channel, Shawna Games. Play a lot of cozy games, Animal Crossing, Sims, stuff like that. And I plan on getting back into it. I just upgraded some of my stuff, so I'm ready to get going again. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so exciting. I am looking forward to watching more Shawna Games. You can catch me, obviously, on Discord. I'm always there, moderating, keeping all y'all rascally kids in line. But when I'm not doing that, I might be live on Twitch. You can catch me on Tuesdays playing turn-based games for Turn-Based Tuesday. And then Saturday and Sundays, I am live with live video game music, so keep an eye out for both of those. I will also post links when I go live over on Discord, so anything I do, you can find there.
And if you want more from me, I've got my own podcast, What Am I Podcasting For?, where I've been playing through the entire Mega Man series and chronicling my journey, including my own most recent April Fool's episode, where rather than playing official games, I ended up playing Minecraft and Doom, and if you have no idea how that's connected, give that a listen. So, with that, the regular host will be back next time alongside DH Bowser with Super Paper Mario. Until the next Retro Recap, I've not been Dustin.
I've not been Kenny.
Steam Deck not Nolan.
And this has been New Game Plus.